Hey, Liz, thanks for joining us.
Hey, El, thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you on the show today. How you feeling?
You know what? I feel good. I feel steady. Life is good. Life is calm. That's a plus.
I like it. I like it. All right. You showed up prepared. You look very pretty.
Thank you.
All right. So, folks, what was that?
I did brush my hair today.
Me too.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So, folks, today we have Liz Rockwood joining us on the show. And she sent me an email a few months back. It's been a while. And she writes, totally obsessed with the podcast. I've never heard the SHAIR network until my friend Kenneth Rivord told me he was going to Costa Rica to share his story. For those of you who remember, Ken, his story was one that got a tremendous amount of feedback on. A lot of positive, loving feedback from Ken's story. Open, honest, very vulnerable. It's what, and we did it in my house. So just that's the Ken Rivord we're talking about here. And you have a schedule where you work 4 days on, 4 days off. So I have 4 days to be by myself, hence my new obsession with your podcast. The most recent story that touched me beyond any other one was Denise W. That was another one that got tons and tons of review, lots of vulnerability on that one, the victim suit. And I have listened to it 3 times thus far. I have shared my story a few times over the years, and would be honored to do so with you. How's that? That sound about right, Liz?
That does sound about right.
All right. Wonderful. All right. So let's get started. So before we start talking about your journey into recovery, tell us a little bit about what your normal daily routine looks like, including your own personal routine for recovery.
Okay. So like you said, my schedule for work is 4 days on, 4 days off. I work 12-hour days. So on those days, I pretty much get up 4:30 right away. I am, my mom passed last year. And so right away, I just say good morning to her. Then I say good morning to God. I go and pray for about 10 minutes. And then something new I've incorporated recently. I used to meditate on and off whenever I felt I needed it. Now I've incorporated that just actually in the last couple weeks, meditating for about 10 to 12 minutes every morning as well. And wow, what a difference. It's huge. Oh my gosh. The stress is starting to melt off and things aren't getting to me as much. So, but yeah, and then, so my work week is pretty much, that's it. I go to work, come home, and it's cook dinner for my kids. I've got 2 kids, a 16-year-old boy, 14-year-old daughter. And so those are pretty boring days, and once in a while I'll go to a meeting during those days. I do a sponsor call every week, once every other week. And then I actually see my sponsor on those off weeks. We took a little break when she had a baby. So now we're back to it. I'm now working the 12 by 12. We went through the 12 steps, the big book. And now, so I think that's kind of what my routine with her is going to be. I've had her almost a year. I've gone through a few sponsors. So, but yeah, that's my routine. I go to one meeting, probably 1 or 2 meetings a week. And online, a lot of online I've been doing too.
Now you're doing the SRC?
Yep.
Wonderful.
A couple months ago.
Yeah. No, it's always good to see you.
Yeah.
All right, good. So then I love this whole segue into the meditation. I ask it for multiple reasons. One is for my own personal accountability, because every time someone talks about how they've recently incorporated a meditation or have been doing a long-standing practice of meditation, they talk about the dramatic positive effects it has in their lives. Because I have an on and off relationship with meditation. Usually when I'm in need of something. If
Yeah.
if I'm off center, or things are just like I need to recenter myself, it's like, oh yes, I'm going to go back to meditation. Then I'll do it for a while. I'll get
Yeah.
recentered, and then before I know it, today, not today.
Right. And I had this idea that I only needed to do it in the evening, or when I'm out with nature. Those were that was my idea of it. And now I do it in the morning, and it's just obviously dramatic.
Yeah, it's the benchmark for the day. So you automatically have this starting point where you've already connected to the universe, to God, to whatever. Right. But I think in many cases, it's that intention. I'm going to sit here quietly and just allow the universe to guide me through my day. And, I can't say enough about it. So anyway, here we go again, folks, as we're listening to Liz, yet another person who has meditation in her morning routine and has been one of the big game changers. So that can be your big takeaway for those of us like me who have that on and off relationship, or for those of us that just have never done it, have not done it. It's, what are you doing? 10 to 15 minutes a day?
Yep. 10 minutes.
10 minutes. If you can't put aside 10 minutes, and I'm talking to myself here, then you obviously have no handle on anything, right? Because everyone's got 10 minutes. All right, so good. Yeah. So then outside, because there's the meditation, is there something else? Because my next question is, how do you maintain your spiritual condition, your conscious contact with your higher power? Is there something more that you do, or what does that relationship look like?
So I am constantly talking to God. It's just within the last year, I've become so much more spiritual, and it's just a relationship that I've developed, and I just feel His presence all the time. I had some profound experiences that I'll share, but it's just nonstop, and it's and I know when it stops because I'm all over the place. So it's crazy. It's like, I say, it's funny. I say it's nonstop, and then I say, but I know when it stops. Obviously it does stop, but I am just always talking to Him, and it's when I'm not listening is when it actually stops. Is when I'm not, because I'll talk to Him, but then that's all I'm doing. I'm just talking, but I gotta sit still and listen.
Man, that's beautiful. So there is that counterpart to that, talking to God. Some of us take intuition for granted. Some of us take that gut feeling. They talk about having three brains, one here, one here, one in our head, one in our heart, and one in our stomach, which is, we have three brains. And depending on what's going on in our lives, we will get a feeling, a sensation. Usually the sensations come from your chest or from your stomach. Yeah. All that is an indication that there is either a warning or a message, or, hey, you're going in the right direction, or hey, you're going in the wrong direction. And it's in those times where you want to sit with that. You want to allow that. And if you don't, it builds into anxiety, frustration, overwhelmed, tremendous amounts of fear, because I'm not listening to it. So it builds on itself. So until I choose to listen to it, it won't subside. And then when it gets really out of control, that's when usually I have to pick up the phone, talk to somebody else, just, oh man, I'm super overwhelmed. So what's going on in your life? Well, I have this thing going on. And then before you know it, the answer come. So listening is so important, because your body's talking to you all the time.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. So now we're going to start moving into the addiction piece here. And so I've changed the format a little bit in the sense of how addiction affects us in different ways. So addiction could be a driving force for some of us. It may propel us towards things like drugs, alcohol, food, money, success, even our phones. So how has addiction played a role in your life?
So alcohol played a huge role. That was my drug of choice. Food as well. And, alcohol, I mean, it just brought me down this crazy path. I had the, like a lot of other people, the alcoholic brain before I even ever picked up a drink. The poor decision making, the choices that I made. And then food, I went to that for comfort, emotional support. Phone, of course, that's an ongoing, offgoing. I make a commitment to put it down, and then it stays down for an hour. And I don't have, anything pressing on my phone. I don't do my job through my phone. I have no excuse. And my kids are, constantly, we're all actually on each other because they're 14 and 16. So, they're helpful. And so, yeah, I used to be addicted to attention. I mean, that comes back here and there, but, seeking attention in negative ways. Yeah, it's played a huge role.
Yes. So there's those different, which is why I want to introduce that question, because there's so many different facets to addiction as we move away from something. For many of us, it's drugs and alcohol that had these huge consequences.
Yes.
And then we pick up other addictions. Typically it's food, sex, and social media, where we start to move into those areas. So what did addiction cost you then?
A lot of lost trust, a whole lot of money, relationships. I had to rebuild my whole life, pretty much everything. Good.
It does eventually. It takes so much. So
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about, what it was like when you were, what it was like, what happened, and how it, what it's like now. Tell us a little bit about what your experience was like, or a little bit about your story when it comes to your addiction.
Okay. So like the first time I drank.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I drank I was 13, but it was just to look cool. So it was just little sips here and there. And then I think like every other alcoholic and addict, I had that, huge euphoria when I was 17 and was introduced to Zima. And that was like, oh, that was heaven. That was like, any stress, anything I felt was just wiped away. And I remember, because I grew up in Wisconsin, so we're around a bonfire. I remember just laying down and staring at the stars and thinking everything was perfect. And I, nothing, no worries, nothing. And it was, start of a beautiful, crazy relationship.
So tell us about that relationship.
So I didn't really start drinking heavy until, well, let's see. I kind of kept it at bay, I should say. I've always drank heavy. Never really had a stop button. Couldn't control it pretty much from the start, but I could control the days that I drank. It didn't snowball into each other quite yet. 21 years old, I got my first DUI. 22, got my second DUI. Decided, I'm going to start over, move to Florida. Nobody told me that when you start over, you still take all the problems. You think you're starting somewhere new, a new geographical area, but, when you go, you can take yourself and all your great decision-making with. But yeah, and I had good intentions and I had lost a bunch of weight. I wasn't drinking, and I kind of started a 10-long career in the grocery business down there. Lived with my brother. I had gotten into a whole bunch of debt, got out of that debt, met my, soon-to-be husband. And we kind of partied here and there, but it wasn't my focus. My focus was career. And then my brother moved away, and then my focus was getting married and having kids to the first person that asked me. And so he was an alcoholic. So that started a pretty crazy relationship, and still didn't drink too much until I had my son in 2002. And let's see, kind of started drinking a little bit more after that. And then had my daughter in 2004. And then I started drinking all the time. I had postpartum depression. It was a crazy time, and ended up getting divorced, lots of abuse, lots of craziness, drinking, cops were called all the time. I ended up in jail for domestic abuse when it wasn't really, but it was, the kind of first person that goes is whoever's bleeding, the other person goes. So that sounds a little extreme, but so then let's see, 2009, third DUI. I end up, I got that, and then I ended up getting picked up on a suspended license. I ended up in jail for a couple months, lost my job. It was, these consequences did nothing for me, just made me, nothing. First thing I did right when I got out of jail, I was there for a couple months, got my kids, then I drank, and I kept drinking. And that's when my heavy drinking really started. And so I was able to move back up north because my ex-husband moved out of state. So this is where all my family is, or most of my family. And I moved in with my sister, 2010. And it was, holy cow, she had so much alcohol in her house. And guess what? I drank it all. Oh, I don't know how she didn't notice. I was the housekeeper and the babysitter. She had 3 kids. I had 2. I immediately, like the third day, I think I started out the day alone, and I started drinking just right 8 a.m. And I don't think I'd done that quite yet. And it was just all day, every day. And I believe they had so much alcohol because they'd had parties and people left booze, but it was a lot. And cases and cases of beer in their basement. And I would pour 3 or 4 of those beers in a pitcher, hide it under, I'm by myself, hide it under the sink, and then, drink it throughout the day. So she finally taught me on that. Beer. Well, there was beer, wine, all kinds of liquor. It was.
No, I'm just trying to picture pouring 3 cans of beer
in a pitcher.
And hiding it under the sink. Like, it sounds so disgusting.
No, it is disgusting, but it got me where I used to say, oh, I hate the taste of beer, but you know what? It did the job.
Right.
And so, yeah. And then I drink coffee with whatever kind of liquor they had that was disgusting, but my body loved it. It got, and I still hadn't dealt with my divorce, my ex-husband, any of that. So, it was always hiding feelings and hiding what I was supposed to be dealing with. But yep. So my sister finally kicked me out after some crazy times. My kids had gone to their dad's in Oklahoma, where he was living at the time, or Virginia, I'm not sure. And she said, you know what? I am not going to work harder at your life than you. And that was an aha moment. And I, of course, at the time, I remember thinking, fuck you. Like, who are you to tell me who? Of course I'm working out my life. And well, I'd lost a job and everything. I'd gotten a really good job, lost it, got fired for drinking. They had gin in the basement of a hospital. I found it and I drank it. And
good Lord.
Oh yeah.
Like a bloodhound.
Yes, I found it. And I controlled it a couple times, I guess, where nobody caught me, but I don't know. So, there's a lot of different times where those kinds of things happen. And so I ended up in treatment for a year. Very, very helpful. Started me down the right path. I relapsed once in treatment. Moved into sober living after that in St. Paul, and relapsed twice there. Got a DUI the second time.
Sounds like the fourth.
You know, yep, that was the fourth, and that was in 2000. Yeah. Keep tallying them up.
Yeah, I'm keeping notes.
You know, they didn't know about the one in 2009, so I kind of I didn't get away with it, but, you know, again, you know, and where I was living was sober living, so they were trying to hold me accountable, and they were, you know, but I was in it, but I was also doing a lot of lip service. I didn't realize I was, you know, I was doing the action, but I mean, looking at it now, at the time I thought I was, you know, my heart was in it, but I was, you know, I had reservations. I had stuff I hadn't dealt with yet. So, I was able to get a good job, moved out of there, the sober living, was doing well. And a sweet man came into my life that I just couldn't resist. It was horrible for me. I'm not good at choosing men. And guess what happened? Oh,
please indulge me.
Number 5. So
Number 5 DUI?
Yes.
Oh my God.
So then I was facing prison, and
Yeah.
you know, it was pretty serious. And I was able to get a lawyer, and I said, whatever you do, I'll do anything. I'll do whatever, you know, and I'm always willing to do whatever it takes. For one, the consequence, you know, like, I don't want to end up in prison. I know what jail is like. And it's not who I am. I just, you know, my kids deserve better. I deserve better. And I would get complacent. And then I would think I could do things that I can't. I just can't. And so I've been on this very strict program for probation, which has saved me. And, you know, I was, he got me out of, you know, I didn't go to prison, obviously. So that was
obviously.
right. I just thought I'd add that.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, is that kind of a long answer for everybody?
No, that's what I needed. I needed the story.
Okay. So that is, yeah.
Now, was that your rock bottom?
Yeah, I mean, I think I had a few, but that was like when I was like, you know, I had someone approach me in last February to take me through the steps.
Mm-hmm.
Had a couple different sponsors, and, you know, she had some similar things happen. And so we started working together. And since then, it's just been like so much good has come out of that. Like so much, I mean, just, I've always done I've done the steps once with with someone one-on-one, but otherwise it's been in groups. And that's just not effective for getting to the nitty-gritty and really, you know, having someone hear your 5th step or 4th step, you know, just that helped me so much. And I had some things that had happened to me when I was a teenager that I had never, ever told. And so that was, you know, it's not just a saying that secrets keep you sick. Because I mean, you know, I always talk about how saying things out loud, how helpful that is. It's unbelievable. It's like, you know, do we always listen to our own advice though?
No, and that actually we do.
And so,
unfortunately, we do. We do. And it's always the worst advice.
Right. Yes.
Like, we wouldn't give that advice to anybody. But, you know, when it comes to us, right, this is the advice I'm going to give myself. And this is what's so true about, you know, we're only as sick as our secrets, because in our heads, we process that information differently. Just like the advice we give ourselves, we process differently. The justification, the rationalizations, the extremities, right? How extreme it is, how insignificant it is. In our own minds, this information, these secrets are just stories.
Yeah.
So I have this story that I've been telling myself for all these years, and I don't talk to anybody about it. So I am forced to process this all by myself. I'm an alcoholic. I've got 5 DUIs.
Right.
I've ended up in prison. I could do real time. I could lose my kids.
Yeah.
Yet I choose to continue to counsel myself.
Right.
So once we are able to be vulnerable and say, okay, so here's where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
Here's where I'm at. I need help. The minute we say I need help, right, that's usually where the first, weight comes off.
Right. It's so freeing, and it's like the last thing I would do. I'm very slow at, I learned the hard way almost with everything.
Mm-hmm.
I am very slow at asking for help, very slow at like processing things. I've done somatic therapy, I've done EMDR, I've done Reiki, I've done, I've been open to all these experiences. And since I started somatic, that's another thing that really changed me in my spirituality. And So, but yeah, I would say last year was pretty rough.
Okay. So then, and how old are you now?
I'm 42.
42. You've got a little over a year sober, or is it 2?
15 months. Yep. A little over a year.
Okay. So 15 months. All right. You started drinking how old?
17.
Okay. So we're talking over 20 years.
Yep.
Okay. So we've got these 20 years of time where in the midst of this, I get married, divorced, correct? You've been married twice?
Married, divorced once.
Married, divorced once, and then got into a relationship with a very sweet man, apparently.
It was like a month-long, horrible, seeking attention, begging for attention, like, yes.
Okay. All right.
Very sweet.
So then what has this year been like? You said it was rough. In what ways was this first year, this first 15 months so rough?
Okay. So I will share that. So let's see. So I got the DUI in October of 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, and dealing with that. And then, my family disappointment, my kids, just, praying to God. My ex-husband didn't find out. January of 2018, we found out my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. So that, and they gave, the prognosis was 6 months. And I was just, I asked my lawyer just to postpone it until, after she passed, so I could just take all the time I needed, postpone my hearing, all the time I needed to be with her, to, just concentrate on that. And then whatever I had to do, just, deal with that after. And so, very, very close to my mom. She, she had 10 kids. I'm number 8 out of 10 of us. 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
Every time I hear that, I can't get over it. When I hear astronomical numbers like 9 kids, 10 kids, how could you possibly raise 10 kids? It's a miracle.
She had more love than she's amazing. She had lots of love for us, and she was a healer. She was a massage therapist, and, she had the same clientele for 20 years, lived in the same town I grew up in. Just a phenomenal woman. And so, we gathered around her as much as we could. We kind of had a Thanksgiving dinner in February with all the kids. Everybody came home. And so that was very profound. That was a huge motivator for me to stay sober and to stay on the right path. There was no feeling sorry for myself it was just a very, and then my sponsor came into my life. I mean, I knew her, but then she heard about my mom, and her mom, had passed too of something similar. So I think she felt, she was connected to me in that way. And I think she just kind of, I've always been drawn to her, but I wasn't sure why. I'd see her at softball games. And so she came to me and she said, what do you think of us, maybe working together? And that was huge for me. No one has ever approached me. I've always been like scared to death approaching someone and then not really following through. Like just, so we dug into the book, and it was amazing to have that time every single week at the same time, that commitment, I've never done that before. That was awesome. And, you know, just being able to go through all of that with, you know, the time with my mom and everything and processing things. And then I've had the same therapist for 7 years, and she suggested somatic therapy because I've already done DBT and EMDR. And so something that I had never talked about that happened when I was 17 came up during somatic therapy. And you know, it's interesting because I just wouldn't ever give it a voice or bring it to light because, oh my gosh, there's no way I could deal with it. And I never consciously thought that though. I just stuffed it that deep. And so, and it was during a drinking escapade. And of course I had a lot of shame and guilt around it. I think it was the summer before I turned 18, and I was at a bar. Shouldn't have been at a bar by myself, but I was feeling sorry for myself, and was just really, you know, probably the drunkest I'd been in my life so far. And I was gang raped by 5 different guys that I knew. And it was super, you know, it was just like that really, I spiraled out of control after that. So that was something that I started dealing with and started healing from, and doing that somatic therapy and being in a safe place. I mean, the emotions you go through when you're doing that kind of therapy, and having someone just, okay, it's not actually, you know, just reminding you that your body's just going through this. You know, there's a book that I've read called Your Body Keeps the Score. I don't remember who the author is, but it's like your body remembers all that trauma, and you're just stuffing it, and you're, you know, different things just trigger it. You know, my ex-husband would say to me would trigger it, and I had no idea what, you know, whatever it was. It just, but yeah, so I started really healing from that. And then I started learning how to forgive people. I shouldn't say learning. I'd learned how, but really truly forgiving them and letting it go. Not just forgiving them for the moment. And so, you know, I just started doing all kinds of things that were just happening because I was ready and vulnerable and letting it, and learning, and, you know, just, I was open to it. If you're not open to it, it's just not gonna sink in or happen.
No, you have to be a willing participant in the process of letting go.
Yep. Absolutely.
No one can talk you through it.
Right. So, that was a big step. And then, you know, finding out about my mom, I was able to process through that. And just, I tell you what, I cannot say enough about somatic therapy. Can you
expand a little bit about what that looks like for some of us that are novice to the somatic?
So it's someone that's trained in, so basically it's you don't even really talk during it. You kind of, you talk about a point to start with, the therapist, who's trained in this, and it helps with anxiety, trauma, addiction, depression. So the therapist is there to kind of watch your body and like your emotions and kind of guide you through whatever they can see your body doing. So I would rock a lot. I would want to sit on the floor because I like to be rooted. And we'd start with like a memory or even a recent event. Like I did it with my mom. And I thought, that was my biggest fear, losing my mom, of course. And how am I going to get through this? How am I ever going to get through life without my mom? And so we started, like, when we did that, I sat there and she said, what does it look like? What does your life look like without your mom? You know, we'd start there. And then I wouldn't talk. And she would talk a little bit and ask me, you know, what are you feeling? And like a lot of times I just rock. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's your body doing all of the work, not your brain. That's kind of the best way I can explain it. It's your body working through it.
Well, there's different practices. Yoga is a somatic practice.
Yes. Yeah.
Have you done yoga as well?
Yes.
And how have you?
I haven't done it like much.
Okay. And that's one of the reasons why I asked, because I'm curious, what are the obvious different forms of somatic work?
Mm-hmm.
The issue is in our tissues.
Yes.
So releasing it's the emotional bondage
Mm-hmm.
that we have to these thoughts, because it's
Yes.
a thought, it's an event, it produces thoughts, which creates an emotional state.
Right.
That's where all the problems come in. As soon as I'm attached emotionally, then I want to soothe it. Negative emotions come in, I want to soothe these, and alcohol, drugs, cigarettes, food, whatever, to numb it out or soothe it, or however you want to look at it. And this, in a safe environment, allows you to push that to the surface.
Yes.
Correct?
Yep. That's
how that works. Okay.
Yes. And then release it. And, there were times where I would finally release it. I'd be there 20 minutes, rocking like crazy, and, just comforting myself and crying and then all of a sudden it'd be released, and I would just sit there, and I would feel God. That's what I love. Like, I would felt the presence of God and the warmth on my face. And that was a huge deal for me with my mom. I sat there for probably 10 minutes just feeling God, and I knew she would be okay. And that led me into this, being okay with her passing. And she was okay with it. So that helped a lot. She was so, and then just another, spiritual experience that I had with when her only thing that she ever asked of her children was to take care of her when she was dying. And so, we did that, not knowing what the hell we were doing. It was just, we laugh so hard now, but we were just it was pretty stressful at the time, but we did a great job. Thank God. It's just so hard to see people suffer. People suffer for years. My mom actually only suffered for probably maybe a month, real, true, really painful suffering. I would say probably 2 weeks, but some other people might say longer. So we were very blessed, and she slept for 6 days. We kept thinking she was going to pass, and she just hung on. Her heart was very strong. And so, and they tell you to feel for the cold on the hands. So we're there's 8 of us kids there, nonstop touching her hands and her feet. Are they cold? Do you feel it? I feel something cold. It's just crazy. We're just preparing, and then it wasn't happening. She's like, well, I'm going to make sure you guys are sick of me, and you're just ready to let me go. I think that was kind of her last laugh. But, we just had praying around her was amazing. And just all of us just coming together and being there for her. And, just we were just joined caring for her.
I remember,
that was another thing.
I think, and this is something that should be noted, for the listeners as well, going through an experience like this. I went through it with my father. He had cirrhosis of the liver. And so it was a year of this gradual progression downhill, getting worse. If I knew then what I know now, we probably would have done things differently. But you've never gone through it, and you think maybe there's a chance. Maybe we can get a liver transplant. Maybe, but here's a guy who's 67 years old, who's a chronic drinker, and he's not going to go to the top of the donor list.
Right.
All right. And when they actually, when we got to the point where he could actually be submitted for approval to go on a donor list.
Right. Because don't you have to be sober for?
Right. So we had to go through this process. And then once they said, okay, well, here's the next step before we can actually put him on a donor list. And he had to go get a physical done to check his heart. And the doctors in the process of said, your dad wouldn't make it through the surgery. His heart is too weak. and it's his arteries. I mean, my dad grew up, he was allergic to salad, didn't
Oh my
drink
God.
water, right? Limited exercise. It was
Yeah.
meat, potatoes, fast food, right? Lots of Diet Coke, and
Yeah.
just nothing that is going to cleanse the system. It's just going to continue to impact it in a negative way. And
Yeah.
so we had to just get around him. And at some point we just said, maybe he's holding on for us.
Right.
Okay, so how about we just say our goodbyes, and maybe that's going to do it. And so there was just 3 of us, not 8.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we got around my dad, and it was like, we're like, Dad, if you're holding on for us,
Mm-hmm.
you don't need to do that, right?
Yeah.
We want what's best for you. If you're ready to let go, if you're ready to move on, we're ready to let you go.
Yeah.
Right? We're suffering, you're suffering. It's not fair to anybody here. We're holding on, and from what the doctors tell us, whatever recovery is made is going to be meager at best.
Right.
And so many of his other organs were started to be affected from all the other shutdowns, right? The liver starts to shut down, kidneys start to shut down. Like everything's just like, and then funny enough, within a week of us doing that, within the week, it's probably within days of us doing that, he went into I think it was either cardiac arrest or it was some sort of respiratory failure.
Yeah.
So he had to go on a machine, and in his will, he said, if I go on a machine, my kids have the right to let me go. And we were like,
right.
But let him go.
Yep.
Pull everything.
Yeah.
Right. And he went, they said, well, this could take a couple of days.
Right.
He was gone within an hour.
Oh, that's
of them pulling everything out. Yeah. Once he had the respirator and all the different tubes, and we could finally see him without all this crap on him. Mm-hmm. He went. And so many of us, when it's that, there's the spirit trying to release itself, but there's the physical holding on for us. We're holding on for them. Yeah. And the inevitable is going to happen. And if I could do it all over again, I would have let him go a long time ago and just said, hey, Dad, if it's time for you to go, it's time for you to go. And I think that's probably what happened with you guys, with all the prayers going around. At some point she realized it's okay. Everyone's going to be all right. And I think that's a super important thing, because I feel it matters. I feel that matter. You have to actually give that permission.
Yep. I agree.
So interestingly enough, all this stuff is going on. Really rough year. The big takeaways here, when I'm listening to this, and here's the key takeaways when it comes to first year in sobriety, is I got myself a sponsor, but the right sponsor. I started doing the work. I actually met every week with the step work. Yeah. So here's what happens. I'm growing as a person. I'm learning. So that's growth is all about learning and expanding.
Yes.
Our intellect, our knowledge. So I'm working the steps, so I'm forced to grow. I'm going to meetings and I'm working with a sponsor, so I'm forced to connect. So I'm connecting, I'm growing, right? I'm feeling this positive energy around me. And I'm also got accountability.
Right.
I've committed to being accountable.
Right.
So there's another added element to this whole thing. I'm growing, I'm connecting, I'm being accountable, right? There's a level of certainty, right? My whole life is filled with uncertainty. I'm drinking. I don't know what's going to happen in the courts. Am I going to go to prison? Am I going to get another DUI? What's going to happen to my kids? Just this constant 20 years of uncertainty of what's going on. And now all of a sudden I have something I can count on. I have a sponsor I can count on. I have a time. I have work to do. everything. So all of these facets are working together on top of this level of accountability.
Yep.
And when those things start, and this is where, if people are listening, this is what happens when we stop going to meetings and you say, well, I stopped going to meetings and then things started to change.
Yes.
But that's because if you stop going to meetings, it means you stop calling your sponsor. If you stop calling your sponsor, it means you stop working the steps. You stop working the steps, you stop growing. If you stop meeting with your sponsor, you stop connecting. So you lose the connection, you lose accountability, you lose the growth, you lose the certainty.
Right.
But you don't add those things up.
Right. And it, sometimes it's gradual, sometimes it happens, all at once, and it's never good. Never.
No.
It's just.
But a lot of times, a lot of times it's based on a story. So which is where my next question is, right? This is a lot of where my work comes from, or where we do deep dives, is in the stories we tell ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So here's some of the stories. I can't do this because once I achieve this, I'll be happy, right? That you learn and you pick up patterns from role models in your life. Things have happened. You've got events, role models, people, stories evolve. And I start to believe these stories. So what is the stories that you used to tell yourself, those limiting beliefs, and what is it that you believe now?
Well, for a long time, I just used to think that, I wasn't worthy. People always left me. My dad moved when my parents got divorced. He moved out to Idaho. Boyfriends left me. Everybody leaves me. So that's kind of like, so I'm not good enough. I mean, it's so ingrained in us sometimes. We're not good enough. We're not worthy. I'm not worthy of love. And it's just, that was my excuse to drink. Abusive relationship after abusive relationship as well. And it was just, they leave me. So guess what didn't leave me?
Alcohol.
That was my best friend, and I was not giving it up. And, I thought I was okay because I wouldn't drink for like a week, then I would drink again, and it would just go on and off like that for years. And so now, hell yeah, I'm worth it. I am worth more than a bottle, more than an empty bottle, more than 5 empty bottles under the sink, which was my favorite hiding place when I lived alone with my kids, but I just, if you're going to abandon me, it's not my problem. Then that's goodbye. Don't let the door hit your ass on the
right.
Wall. But yeah, it took me a long time to get there, and a lot of turning my thoughts around. That was something I learned in treatment. We had to do like this thinking report. You have to turn your thoughts around. As soon as that thought hits my head now, I am challenging it. And I just talked to my sponsor about this yesterday. Like, if I'm judging people, I can recognize these things now. Before, it's just so, it's so natural. It's so ingrained. You have to constantly challenge those thoughts. And then those, as long as they're thoughts and you can challenge them, they don't have to turn into action. And then you start thinking more positive than negative. And it just is more, my go-to often is the negative thought when I'm going through something tough. But then if I'm in a good headspace, I can challenge that and get out of it right away. And then talk about how I did that. But yeah, definitely changing my thoughts.
That is, again, for you guys that are listening, that's a reframe. So you reframe the thought, you reframe the language. It's rescripting, it's reframing, it's turning it around. It's however you want to label it. It's a thought comes in, you challenge the thought. Because what happens is a thought comes in, I'll get triggered. Yes. It'll trigger an emotional response. So I'll know I'm having a negative thought just based on my negative emotions. And I'll want to soothe it. I want to eat some chocolate, or God forbid, drink some alcohol, or do something that actually harms me. But right. The thing is, those things that harm us have the quickest ability, have the the quickest, my God, hello. What is it? Gratification. Okay. You have instant gratification. You have delayed gratification. Instant gratification are things that I can go to if I cut myself, if I drink, if I, whatever things that I can immediately put into my body through my ears, through my eyes, through my mouth, right? That's the instant gratification. The delayed gratification is a thought comes in, I start to feel a certain way, and I go and I sit there and I go, wait a minute. What is that thought? Is that thought true? Am I 100% certain that it's true? Do I have evidence to support that it's true? As soon as I go 3 stages deep, I've already disconnected from the cognitive mind and moved into the subconscious mind, which is what all that, when we talk about DBT and REBT and EBT, I mean, all of these things are very similar because it's all cognitive, tapping in to the subconscious. So I use my cognitive senses to challenge it. And then I'll process this by asking really? Is this really happening? Really? Seriously? Is this true? Right? I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. I can't do this. Wait a minute. Where is that coming from? And like you said, then I'll talk to somebody about it. Like, dude, I just had the weirdest thought. And in many cases, the minute I say that out loud, it becomes exactly that, this weird thought.
Yeah.
And it stops becoming truth, and it just becomes this weird sort of anomaly that appeared, and then it just becomes kind of funny. One of the things we learned when I went to UPW, Unleash the Power Within with Tony Robbins, was we went through our limiting beliefs, right? So one of the things that you would do with those is, say, for example, I'm a failure, or I will fail, or I am not worthy, or whatever the case is. I'm not good enough.
Right.
So he would make you put your finger in your nose.
In
your nose. You had to literally put your finger in your nose. I'm doing it right now because it's think about it. Okay. And then it's like, I am not good enough. I am not worthy. Right. And then all of a sudden it's like, I feel ridiculous.
Right.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just it's a pattern interrupt. It's a state change in that moment. And then immediately, like, what is the truth? The truth is, of course I'm worth it.
I'm here. I mean, I don't go through 5 DUIs and all this other trauma throughout my life and all this other crap to just exist. That, that's kind of my analogy now. Like, I'm not just going to exist. I'm not going to pour me, the victim stance. I used to do that. That was my, like, so ingrained. Like, I didn't even know that you could live a different way. It was just like, all these things are happening to me. No accountability, no, I never did anything wrong. It was all about what other people did to me. It was just, and I don't think that's uncommon with addicts and alcoholics to think that way, but I don't want to. I'm not going
to. The victim role is very, very popular, which is probably why you enjoyed Denise's episode so much, because there's so many secondary benefits to being the victim, playing the victim. No accountability, no responsibility, tremendous amount of blame, and I can stay exactly where I'm at. I don't have to change anything because it's not me.
Right.
It's all these horrible things that happened to me in my life and all these horrible people. And as soon as we reframe that and go, I have the power to change anything in my life. I am responsible and accountable for the decisions and the choices that I make. So if there is a problem and I admit or I embrace the idea that I am the problem, that is the good news, because I am also the solution.
Yes. Yes.
And it's all this, but you have to believe it. There is a lot of, this is where you have to do the work, because there's only intentions, affirmations, not intentions. Affirmations are only going to get you so far.
Right.
recognizing where that intention comes from. It has to come from true belief
Right.
that my
It's all about
story,
action.
it's all about action. It's all about action. My story has value. Me
Yes.
having 5 DUIs, not going to prison, not losing my kids, right? All these different experiences that I had are for a reason. And now here I am to show other people, hey, you know what? Doesn't matter how far down the rabbit hole you get.
Right.
There's always hope, and there's always a way out. I love it. I love the work that you've done. I mean, that it shows that based on where you're at, right, you have the very, very strong tools, and those tools you don't learn doing step work. You don't learn how to reframe. You don't know how to sit with your thoughts. You know, there's these techniques, the somatic work. Right. When we think about what it takes to live a life of fulfillment, of joy, of happiness, success, passion, if you go through a process and you're still not feeling it, it's time for the second process. It's time for the next thing. It's either coaching or therapy or somatic work. Just in this episode alone, we've got multiple things that you've done with the therapy, the MDR, the somatic work, the steps, the sponsorship, all of this, and getting out there and sharing your story as well, because contribution is huge.
Yes. That's another thing that I've picked up is, you know, I used to say, oh, I don't have time, or it's just, I don't know, I can't, you know, I'll get too involved. Well, hell yeah, I'm going to get too involved. Why not? Like, I can separate my, you know, I used to think I couldn't separate it as well, like separate that person from myself. You know, if I was to become a sponsor, you know, I have a sponsee right now that's out there using. So unfortunately, that's, you know, that's not on me. And I would try
definitely
to
not on you. Yeah.
And now, nope. Okay. I'm learning, you know, boundaries, of course, big word. And so I'm learning that. But yeah, it's just helping people is so huge. And that's, you know, that I feel like that's one of my purposes, is to help people and to just be kind and lend that extra hand and, you know, be compassionate. Listen, all we have to do is listen to people when they need to vent, you know, and maybe help them with some words or a hug. Hugs are huge. Yeah.
Hugs are,
Yes.
there's research on
Oxytocin.
Yeah, it takes, what does it take? 20 seconds?
Yep.
You hold on to somebody for at least 20 seconds and then boom, it releases oxytocin. And I've always been a big hugger.
Yeah.
So a lot of times
I have a friend that is so good at hugs, and I'm just like, I just need a hug.
Yeah.
And you know, that's it. That's all you need sometimes.
I can't tell you how many times, you know, I've been at a meeting and somebody's like, hey, can I get one of your hugs? I'm like, bring it in.
Yeah.
Let's go. And I will squeeze you. Right. And I remember being and it was a trip, because that's after people get to know you. Right.
Yeah.
And I was at UPW, and there was a girl sitting behind me, and we were running around. Everybody's like, that's part of the process is, okay, 5 hugs, get 5 hugs from 5 different people. And so I hugged this girl, and I give her, you know, one of my strong hugs, and she just felt comfortable. So she squeezed me, and then she lost it.
Oh, jeez.
She just everything came out, and I was like, okay, I said, it's all right. Let's just keep it coming. I got you. Right. And I just gave her that nice, secure hug, and she just let it all
we need.
That's it. It's the safety that's that's the difficult part.
Right.
It's the feeling safe. Once you feel safe, it'll just naturally.
Right.
It'll just naturally come out. I love it, man. Hugs. They are I cannot say enough about, you know, good, strong 20-second hugs. They will change your life.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree.
All right. Let's stay in control here. All right. So no, because here's the thing. I love all these topics. So I could just we could just keep going. I'm like, I was talking to me. Reel yourself in, reel yourself in. All right. So many of us have had a moment in our lives when we drew a line in the sand and said to ourselves, not one more day, not one more hour, not one more minute. I will no longer tolerate this in my life. What was that pivotal moment in your life when you turned it all around? What was it that made the difference for you?
You know, when I was thinking about this, I've had, 18 months clean, 2.5 years, a year and a half, whatever it was. But honestly, when I really felt that strongly about it was when my mom was diagnosed. I said, you know what? She is not going to see me from heaven messing up my life or even thinking about it. She is like right here all the time. If I want or think about alcohol, I'm like, she's just right here. Like there is no turning her away or turning her off. And it's amazing that I just feel her, it was just, yeah. It was funny when.
Go ahead.
When I asked her, I gave her a week before I went to her after a diagnosis and said, all right, what do we need to talk about? What else, because I apologized. I, tried doing everything. And she said, you are just fine. Just keep doing what you know how to do. And you're going to be fine. She's telling me I'm going to be fine.
Yes.
I am. And so it was like, are you sure? I just want to make sure. Are you sure? I don't want her going to her grave, having resentments. And she, she's like, no, I'm your mom. It's okay.
What a beautiful gift.
Yeah.
What a beautiful gift she gave you, and what a beautiful gift you're giving her.
Yeah.
Because she gave you such a strong legacy in her own life. Her own life experience was such a powerful legacy for you. Mm-hmm. And listen, I have talked to so many people that use this as a crutch.
Yes. Yep.
My mom died, my dad died. I can't cope. I can't deal with it. I can't get over it. It's all bullshit.
Yeah.
It's a choice.
Right.
And if they're looking down on you, do they want to watch you running around like some kind of crazy person, unable to manage your emotions, unable to deal and cope with life? Is that what you want them to remember you as? Or if they could see you?
Right.
Or do you want to take this moment to really anchor yourself and go, man, you know what? I owe it to them.
Right.
To live a life.
Honestly, I don't want my kids,
Yeah.
ever see, I teach them what I learn in the program. I'm always saying, okay, so we have a problem. What's the bet? What are 2 or 3 different solutions? Things like that you just learn how to. The way I deal is how I want to teach them to deal now. Correct.
Yeah. We've learned all these wonderful tools.
Mm-hmm.
We can teach that to them. I mean, God only knows for many of us, what we got from our generations past was toxicity, was no boundaries, was no communication. You don't air your dirty laundry. So there's dysfunction and toxicity and abuse and fear and guilt and shame.
Yeah.
And as we eradicate that from our lives, we can eradicate it from our children's lives. There is no need for guilt and shame about anything.
Yeah. And they're so observant like that. My kids went away for the summer to their dads. And so when they came back, my son asked me, are you still working with what's her name? She's still coming over? Because he saw what a big difference it made. And so that was pretty huge when he said that. And had never really, talked much about her or anything, my sponsor. And so that was pretty cool.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's wonderful when your kids, that's the thing. They notice everything. Everything. They don't say shit.
Right.
But they know what's going on. And the thing is, what a great yardstick to measure by, because they don't give a shit what you say.
Right.
It's what you do that matters.
Yeah.
They're the biggest ones. It's not even a conscious thing, but for them, it's like, yeah, a lot of lip service, not
Right.
buying it. You know,
Yeah.
I'm never going to do that again, I promise. Yeah, sure, Dad. Right? That kind of a thing. But when you live your life in a certain way, it doesn't matter what you say, because people don't remember what you say, right? They remember what you do, and they remember how you make them feel.
Right.
That's what they remember. I love it. So I know you've kind of mentioned it already, but tell us about an aha moment in your life when you realized you were now moving in the right direction. Or was it your mom?
So it was my mom, and I did have, I've had a couple throughout my life, but I think one of them was probably after my, after doing my 4th step last year, was just, I felt that presence of God, and I felt like, okay, it is all out now. There is nothing that I need to, I literally went through from the time I was like 4 years old, and I was making sure I wasn't missing anything. And, and I didn't. And it was a beautiful thing.
That is magnificent. I love it. This is so much good stuff on this interview, because really there is tips, there's strategies, there's pathways, there's so many different things that if you don't know what to do, there's an innumerable amount of things that you can try out in your own life that could just make all the difference in the world. Especially the somatic work. That's pretty huge,
so
because
huge.
it's releasing, really, the more you can cry. I remember I didn't even know why I was doing it, but the first couple of years in recovery,
oh my gosh,
I just cried all the time. There's a guy, is such a crier.
You had to feel stuff that you were covering up for so many years, and now it's coming. And
I had no tough guy left in me. I had no tough guy left in me. Once I surrendered, my sponsor said, okay, are you willing to go to any length? And I said, yes. And we started doing the work.
Yeah. I
could no longer put that armament back on.
Right.
I was beat. So, do you have a favorite book that you would recommend to our listeners?
I have a couple, but I know others have been mentioned, but Deepak Chopra wrote just a short book called Overcoming Addictions. And it's, it's about spirituality too. I think it's the spiritual solution is on there somewhere too. But, it's funny. I just want to share this other small, like just tiny aha moment. I'm trying to date. That's another like baby steps. I go back and forth on it. So I'm telling my good friend that knows me very well. I'm like, I'm getting so much anxiety just thinking about dating. And then I start talking to a guy, and I'm just, I'm just spinning. Like I can hear myself talking so fast about this anxiety. And he goes, why the hell do you have to date? Why can't you just concentrate on being healthy? I'm like, oh, that's just something that simple. Duh. Like, what's wrong with that? I don't have to date. I'm just trying to challenge myself, but obviously not ready. And that's okay.
And listen, it's all okay.
Yeah.
All of it's okay. I've got a bad picker. I've got a bad track record. Every single one of these is, ended up in a train wreck. Right. So I have the anxiety that you're feeling is your body's way of going, warning, warning, danger, danger. This is where we get into trouble.
Yeah.
So I start focusing on what I don't want. I don't want another alcoholic. I don't want another deadbeat. I don't want another this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Once you start getting to that point where it's like, okay, well, I want to date. Like, say, for example, I want to date. Okay, great.
Right. And
I look at it as just a natural part of my life, which would be I'm entitled to, just like anybody else.
Yeah.
Okay. How do I remove all that anxiety? I have to create my list of non-negotiables. I have to create my list of negotiables. I have to create my qualities that I'm looking for in a person. I have to list my qualities that I bring to the table. So first I put the business proposal together. Okay, so here's what I bring to the table. Here's what I want them to bring to the table, right? Here's the non-negotiables.
Right.
And then as soon as you show up on a date and the guy has 3 martinis, you're like, God, it was so nice to meet you. Wow, it's late, gotta go. You know, it's like, it's not rocket science. Before it's like, well, I wonder if this guy's an alcoholic and maybe he's just nervous. And, you know, it could be that I'm just being too harsh. Maybe I'm judging. Bullshit. No, that's your first sign. Get out.
Yes.
Okay. So if it's smoking's an issue, if drinking's an issue, there's certain things that are just like, this is a non-negotiable issue. Once I have my list of non-negotiables, it gets a lot easier to date.
Right. Yes.
Because then for me, it's like, okay, this could be I'm going to go out on a date, and this could very well be the only time I ever meet this person. So I'm just going to make the best of it. I'm going to ask the questions I need to ask. Hey, so you haven't been married? Oh, you got any kids? Oh, you want more kids? Oh, you want more kids? Okay, next.
Bye.
Right. I mean, seriously.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can be that simple, but what we do is I'm so focused on all the fear of past relationships that I'm focusing on, I don't want this, I don't want that, I don't want this. And what you focus on, you get. Right? Oh, I want somebody who's in recovery. Or I want somebody who just doesn't drink. My wife is not an addict. Right. She's not an alcoholic. So she drinks. And her idea of a drink is about 3/4 of a glass of wine, and then she leaves. Ludicrous, because I notice that every time, right? Like every time it's like, and I normally I don't say anything because then she's like, "Why are you paying attention to that?" Right. But I'll go, I'm an alcoholic.
Right.
So there just my quick tips for coaching as far as dating is, I'm focusing on what I don't want. So I need to focus on what I do want. I want someone who is very stable financially. I want somebody who either doesn't want to have kids or kids are already grown up. I want somebody who doesn't smoke. I want somebody who doesn't drink. So boom, 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 boom. I have that all set up. As soon as I show up the date, any of those things come up, I'm out.
Right.
No pressure.
Yep.
No pressure. Okay, there's that. All right. What are your 3 most powerful I am statements?
So I've got, I did this actually at a spiritual retreat.
Good.
I am light. I am energy. I am love.
Man, that is beautiful. I absolutely love it. I am light. I am energy. I am love. Every morning, if we get to, and I again, it's about the practice, right? Like mine is like, I'm strong, I'm confident, I'm ready.
Yeah.
And whenever I do that, it sets me into a state, right? And I'll usually like hit my chest right afterwards, like to kind of
doesn't sound like you.
No, not at all, right? Like, to kind of anchor it, right? So I'm confident, I'm strong, I'm ready. Let's go.
Yes.
Actually, I just got tingles doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just got tingles doing that. So it sets me into a state, right? It's one of the coaching strategies that was taught to me about getting ready in between sessions, because sometimes you just it's just one. I got an interview, then I have a coaching session, then I have another coaching session. And after a while, you start to like, right? Yeah. So a quick, get up, maybe 5 jumping jacks, that kind of a thing, deep breathing, right?
Yep.
Get that going. And then the quick, I'm strong, I'm confident, I'm ready. Let's go. And then next thing you know, you're just awake. I don't do it as often as I would like, but I just did it and I'm ready for another, like I could go fucking all day now. I want to go run around the block. I'm all jacked, right? I didn't take
You did it like 3 times.
Yeah. It's like, here's the thing. I didn't put anything into my body. I just activated it.
It's the energy.
I activated it. That's all I did. It's like a light switch. So you do that. If we all got up in the morning and just got into state, like
Yeah.
the meditation, boom. And that takes seconds. It takes seconds to do that.
Yeah.
All right. I love those. Thank you for that. All right. What is your personal success formula or blueprint for success?
You know, I listen to, I think being accountable, holding myself accountable, you know, having a good support system, having very few people, just having a few people that know me really well and checking in with them, you know, making sure that I'm seeing them. I mean, they know if I haven't talked to someone in a few days, they know. They know to reach out. You know, I started at meetings getting phone numbers just literally like this last week. I've been doing a lot of things these last couple weeks after the holidays and everything, getting phone numbers and then just calling people and checking in on them, seeing how they're doing. I feel like I need to make more connections with others than my small group, just to reach out. You know, I don't need to, just, that's it. But yeah, connection's huge. And then spiritual, my very conscious contact with God. I need that.
Spirituality,
Yeah.
connection, a solid, small support system, very intimate. Okay.
Yes.
Phone numbers, accountability, and action.
Yep.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I hope people listening, this is a recipe for absolute success. You cannot fail with this one, right? You get phone. I mean, seriously, at some point, usually at some point in my coaching, right? Especially when people have a propensity to isolate.
Yep.
It's like by our next session, I need 5 numbers.
Yes.
Okay. You need a list of 5 people that you're at least willing to call. That'll be first step before you even PM them or whatever. Yeah. Let's get that list going. Let's get the brain moving towards this idea of a very strong circle of influence, the ability to connect and have accountability. It's absolute recipe for success. Love it. Yeah. All right. So Liz, what is the best advice you have ever received?
The best advice would be, I think someone told me kind of early on that, you know, your feelings are, you're not your feelings, you're just experiencing them, and they're not more powerful than what is actually happening, if that makes sense. I thought it took me a minute to let it sink in, and I was like, oh my gosh, it felt really powerful.
It's super powerful because it dissociates you from the emotion.
Yeah.
Because here's your powerful I am statements, which is I am light, I am energy, I am love. Mm-hmm. That'll catapult you. But there's people that, you know, you hear them all the time. I'm so depressed.
Yes.
I'm lonely. I'm sad. I am.
Yes.
It creates an identity subconsciously. You don't realize this, but when you say I'm sad, I'm lonely, I'm depressed, you're attaching yourself to an identity that you become one with the emotion. Instead of, you know, today I'm feeling sad.
Right.
You know, today, for some reason, I'm feeling a little lonely. Mm-hmm. Now I'm out here.
Right.
Okay. I'm experiencing this. I'm looking from above where I am feeling. Yes, of course. Yes. We all have these days where we feel something.
Yes.
That's part of life. You feel things for a reason. It's not who you are.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But if it's a positive one, I'll identify and attach myself to it all the time. I love being confident. I love being strong.
Yeah. Yes.
So I'll adopt. I'll take it.
Right.
When absolutely. But for many of us, we've gotten so used to being in that negative spiral that we actually attach ourselves, create an identity around that emotion. I've been depressed for years. I'm so depressed. Of course you are.
Yeah. You keep giving that
Yeah,
energy
you
to
keep
it.
giving that.
Yeah.
You just keep giving that intention.
Yep.
You fuel it.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I love it. And finally, what is one parting piece of wisdom you would like to share with our listeners?
I think it's really important that we give ourselves grace. Learning to love myself and finding who you are. Like finding who I was when someone asked me that, I was like, what do you mean, who am I? That's a big question, actually. It's simple answers, but it's a big question when you get into recovery and just kind of, knowing who you are and what your purpose is.
Absolutely. Who am I? I'm light,
Yeah.
I'm energy, and I'm love. That's the
Yes,
quick
I
answer, and it is a wonderful one. Liz, amazing
Yeah.
interview.
Thank you. I was going to shed a lot of light on all the icky stuff, but I've given that enough energy. And I just, I gave you the big events kind of, and that's where I wanted to go with it. So.
Well, that's why I changed the format up, because
yes,
we get too involved in the ickiness,
yes.
and it was actually affecting me.
Yeah, I get that.
And so I said, I've got to do something that's much more empowering so that I can bring, what it also allows us to do is to bring that personal development element into the recovery space. Everything that you talked about outside of 12 steps is all part of the personal development realm, where you are growing in all these different areas, because a lot of it is that cognitive work, that somatic work, it's the coaching work, the therapy work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, and it's so worth it. The results are, you can't get it from, it's so hard. I don't have the words. The results are amazing. And
here's the thing, and I'll say, I'll just for those of you that are listening, okay, I have a goal. I'm not reaching that goal, whatever that goal is. Don't give up on the goal. Change the strategy.
Yes.
If my goal is to be sober, for example, and I reach that goal, and then it's like, yeah, you know what? I'm not feeling fulfilled for whatever reason. It's not what I thought it was going to be, or there's something that's missing. Yes. I want something more. Okay. It doesn't mean, well, I'll just go back to drinking, which is what happens a lot of the times. Okay. I'm not getting what I need from this. So I go back to what used to work. Change the strategy up. That's it. If I'm not, for me, it's the weight thing has always been an issue. So I give up. I'm just going to eat whatever. Who cares? I'm married. Blah, blah,
I only
blah.
live once.
You only live once. Right. Yeah. Or the same thing, right? I'm just going to have a little bit.
Right.
Okay.
A little bit.
So instead of, and so in many cases, I found that I give up on the process. And so what I've learned through coaching is that no, you don't give up on the goal. Just change the strategy. Find something that immediately evokes that spark of energy that you need, and that will propel you to accomplish it. That's why I joined CrossFit this year. I was like, let me try something different.
Right.
And so far, I found that I really enjoy the energy inside the CrossFit gym. Just change your strategy. That's all. Yep. Don't give up on your goals. Don't give up on yourselves.
Right.
Change the strategy. My God, the internet has it all.
Yeah. Yes.
There's those of you that are
like online community. Is that you can go on there, and if you're struggling, whatever it is, someone's always up. Someone, there's different time zones, everything. So that's another thing I did a little bit different, but that's, that's
for those of you, I'm going to say something that you've probably never heard of. Card catalog.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, no. We're in that age, we're in that generation, but there's kids out there that are listening going, what's a card catalog? Know this. What it took for us to get information when we were growing up required work.
a lot of work.
What requires to get resources and information, tips, whatever, is instant, is absolutely instant. Whatever you want to learn about, it's all there at your fingertips.
And you don't even have to type it in. You can just tell Google or Siri to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the easiest thing on the planet.
Yeah.
Liz, this has been a spectacular interview. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for letting me share.
It was awesome. Proud of you.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, folks, we've now reached the end of our show. Thanks for joining us. And as we say here in Costa Rica, pura vida.
Pura vida.
Obviously a listener.
All right.
Love you, Liz.
All right. Love you too. Take care.
All right.